Miguel Street, Chapter 4. His Chosen Calling. After midnight, there were two regular noises in the street. At about 2 o'clock, you heard the sweepers, and then, just before dawn, the scavenging carts came and you heard the men scraping off the rubbish the sweepers had gathered into heaps. No boy in the street particularly wished to be a sweeper, but if you asked any boy what he would like to be, he would say, "I going to be a cart driver." There was certainly a glamour to driving the blue carts. The men were aristocrats. They worked early in the morning and had the rest of the day free. And then they were always going on strike. They didn't strike for much. They struck for things like a cent more a day. They struck if someone was laid off. They struck when the war began. They struck when the war ended. They struck when India got independence. They struck when Gandhi died. Eddowes, who was a driver, was admired by most of the boys. He said his father was the best cart driver of his day, and he told us great stories of the old man's skill. Eddowes came from a low Hindu caste, and there was a lot of truth in what he said. His skill was a sort of family skill, passing from father to son. One day, I was sweeping the pavement in front of the house where I lived, and Eddowes came and wanted to take away the broom from me. I liked sweeping, and I didn't want to give him the broom. "Boy, what you know about sweeping?" Eddowes asked, laughing. I said, "What? It have so much to know?" Eddowes said, "This is my job, boy. I have experience. Wait until you're big like me." I gave him the broom. I was sad for a long time afterwards. It seemed that I would never grow as big as Eddowes. Never that the thing he called experience. I began to admire Eddowes more than ever, and more than ever I wanted to be a cart driver. But Elias was not that sort of boy. When we who formed the Junior Miguel Street Club squatted on the pavement, talking, like Hat and Bogart and the others, about things like life and cricket and football, I said to Elias, "So, you don't want to be a cart driver? What you want to be then? Sweeper?" Elias spat neatly into the gutter and looked down. He said very earnestly, "I think I going to be a doctor, you hear?" If Boy or Errol had said something like that, we would all have laughed. But we recognized that Elias was different, that Elias had brains. We all felt sorry for Elias. His father George brutalized the boy with blows, but Elias never cried, never spoke a word against his father. One day, I was going to Chin's shop to buy 3 cents worth of butter, and I asked Elias to come with me. I didn't see George about, and I thought it was safe. We were just about 2 houses away when we saw George. Elias grew scared. George came up and said sharply, "Where are you going?" And at the same time he landed a powerful cuff on Elias's jaw. George liked beating Elias. He used to tie him with rope and then beat him with the rope he had soaked in the gutters of his cow pen. Elias didn't cry even then. And shortly after, I would see George laughing with Elias, and George used to say to me, "I know what you're thinking. You wondering how me and he get so friendly so quick." The more I disliked George, the more I liked Elias. I was prepared to believe that he would become a doctor someday. Errol said, "I bet you when he come doctor and thing, he go forget the rest away. Elias?" A small smile appeared on Elias's lips. "Nah," he said, "I wouldn't be like that. I go give a lot of money and thing to you and Boy and the rest of the fellows." And Elias waved his small hands, and we thought we could see the Cadillac and the black bag and the tube thing that Elias was going to have when he became a doctor. Elias began going to the school at the other end of Miguel Street. It didn't really look like a school at all. It looked just like any house to me, but there was a sign outside that said, "Titus Hoyt, London External, passes in Cambridge School, certificate guaranteed." The odd thing was that although George beat Elias at the slightest opportunity, he was very proud that his son was getting an education. The boy learning a hell of a lot, you know. He reading Spanish, French, and Latin. And he writing Spanish, French, and Latin. The year before his mother died, Elias sat for the Cambridge Senior School certificate. Titus Hoyt came down to our end of the street. "That boy going pass with honors," Titus Hoyt said. "With honors." We saw Elias dressed in neat khaki trousers and white shirt, going to the examination room, and we looked at him with awe. Errol said, "Everything Elias write not remaining here, you know. Every word that boy write going to England." It didn't sound true. "What do you think it is at all?" Errol said. "Elias have brains, you know." Elias's mother died in January and the results came out in March. Elias hadn't passed. Had looked through the list in the Guardian over and over again, looking for Elias's name, saying, "You never know. People always making mistake, especially when it have so much names." Elias's name was not in the paper. "Boy," he said, "what else you expect? Who correct the papers? Englishman, not so? You expect them to give Elias a pass?" Elias was with us, looking sad and not saying a word. Had said, "It's a damn shame. If they know what hell the boy have to put up with, they would have passed him quick." Titus Hoyt said, "Don't worry, Rome wasn't built in a day. This year, things going to be much better. We go show those Englishmen and them." Elias left us and he began living with Titus Hoyt. We saw next to nothing of him. He was working night and day. One day, in the following March, Titus Hoyt rode up to us and said, "You hear what happened?" "What happened?" Had asked. "The boy's a genius," Titus Hoyt said. "Which boy?" Errol asked. "Elias." "What Elias do?" "The boy gone and passed the Cambridge Senior School certificate." Hat whistled. "The Cambridge Senior School certificate?" Titus Hoyt smiled. "That self, he get a 3rd grade. His name going to be in the papers tomorrow. I always say it, and I saying it again now. This boy Elias have too much brains." Hat said later, "It's too bad that Elias' father dead. He was a good for nothing, but he wanted to see his son an educated man." Elias came that evening, and everybody, boys and men, gathered around him. They talked about everything but books, and Elias too was talking about things like pictures and girls and cricket. He was looking very solemn too. There was a pause once, and had said, "What you going to do now, Elias? Look for work?" Elias spat. "Nah, I think I will write the exam again." I said, "But why?" "I want a 2nd grade." We understood. He wanted to be a doctor. Elias sat down on the pavement and said, "Yes, boy, I think I'm going to take that exam again. And this year, I'm going to be so good that this Mr. Cambridge go bawl when he read what I write for him." We were silent, in wonder. Is the English and literature that does beat me? In Elias's mouth, literature was the most beautiful word I heard. It sounded like something to eat, something rich like chocolate. Had said, "You mean you have to read a lot of poetry and thing?" Elias nodded. We felt it wasn't fair, making a boy like Elias do literature and poetry. Elias moved back into the pink house, which had been empty since his father died. He was studying and working. He went back to Titus Hoyt's school, not as a pupil, but as a teacher, and Titus Hoyt said he was giving him $40 a month. Titus Hoyt added, "He worth it too. He's one of the brightest boys in Port of Spain." Now that Elias was back with us, we noticed him better. He was the cleanest boy in the street. He bathed twice a day and scrubbed his teeth twice a day. He did all this standing up at the tap in front of the house. He swept the house every morning before going to school. He was the opposite of his father. His father was short and fat and dirty. He was tall and thin and clean. His father drank and swore. He never drank, and no one ever heard him use a bad word. My mother used to say to me, "Why you don't take after Elias?" I really don't know what sort of son God gave me. And whenever Hat or Edward beat Boy and Errol, they always said, "Why you beating we for? Not everybody could be like Elias, you know." Hat used to say, "And it ain't only that he got brains. The boy Elias have nice ways too." So I think I was a little glad when Elias sat the examination for the third time and failed. Hat said, "You see how we catch these Englishmen and them? Nobody here can tell me that the boy didn't pass the exam. But you think they go want to give him a better grade?" And everybody said, "It's a real shame." And when Hat asked Elias, "What are you going to do now, boy?" Elias said, "You know, I think I go take up a job. I think I go be a sanitary inspector." We saw him in khaki uniform and khaki toppy, going from house to house with a little notebook. "Yes," Elias said, "sanitary inspector, that's what I'm going to be." Hat said, "It have a lot of money in that, I think. I hear your father George uses to pay the sanitary inspector $5 a month to keep his mouth shut. Let me say you get about 10 or even 8 people like that. That's, let's see, 10 5 is 50, 8 5 is 40. There, $50-40 straight. And mark you, that ain't counting your salary." Elias said, "It's not the money I'm thinking about. I really like the work." It was easy to understand that. Elias said, "But it have an exam, you know." Hat said, "But they don't send the papers to England for that?" Elias said, "No, but still I afraid exams and things, you know. I ain't have any luck with them." Boy, he said, "But I thought you was thinking of taking up doctoring." Hat said, "Boy, I going to cut your little tail if you don't shut up." But boy didn't mean anything bad. Elias said, "I changed my mind. I think I want to be a sanitary inspector. I really like the work." For 3 years, Elias sat the sanitary inspector's exam and he failed every time. Elias began saying, "But what the hell you expect in Trinidad? You got to bribe everybody if you want to get your toenail cut." Hat said, "I meet a man from a boat the other day and he tell me that the sanitary inspector exams is in British Guyana much easier. You could go and take the exam there and come back and work here." Elias flew there, wrote the exam, failed it and flew back. Hat said, "I meet a man from Barbados. He tell me that the exam easier in Barbados. It easy, he say." Elias flew to Barbados, wrote the exam, failed it and flew back. Hat said, "I meet a man from Grenada the other day." Elias said, "Shut your ass up before it have trouble between we in the street." A few years later, I sat the Cambridge Senior School Certificate examination myself, and Mr. Cambridge gave me a 2nd grade. I applied for a job in the customs, and it didn't cost me much to get it. I got a khaki uniform with brass buttons and a cap, very much like the sanitary inspector's uniform. Elias wanted to beat me up the first day I wore the uniform. "What your mother do to get you that?" he shouted, and I was going for him when Edos put a stop to it. Edos said, "He just sad and jealous. He don't mean anything." For Elias had become one of the street aristocrats. He was driving the scavenging carts. "No theory, dear," Elias used to say. "This is practical. I really like the work." End of chapter 4.